the OCI folks. So
welcome everyone to our method seminar. I am thrilled that we have Dan joining us today. We actually really wanted to do this back in March, but we had some extra problems that arose for the entire world. So this got postponed, but I'm really glad that we can do this. I want to make note that this is actually a two-part series. Dan broke it up for us. This is a bit more of an overview of Tableau. And then on, I'm sorry, is it the 14th? On the 14th, that's a Wednesday, there will be a more in-depth presentation of the actual nuts and bolts of a little bit more of the how you use Tableau. Well, I guess this is how you use it too, but how you actually implement things in Tableau. So if you're interested and don't have that link, please let us know and we will get that link for you. And so I'm thrilled to introduce Dan. Dan is a business intelligence analyst here in the Department of Pediatrics. He has a bachelor's degree in computer science from EMU, and he's worked in data and programming analyst roles here at the University of Michigan since 2001, so almost 20 years now. Dan's a Tableau Desktop certified associate, and he's also an advocate for digital user empowerment, including data. So I'm very excited to have him join us today. I think that this is going to be, you know, I didn't know about Tableau for a while. Actually, I'm a little bit late on the uptake, and now I see it everywhere and with many different things. So I think this will be informative for many parts of our research and even potentially our personal lives. So Dan, I'll let you go ahead and take over, and thanks so much for joining us today. And I'll also monitor the chat box and let you know if there's any questions that need to be answered urgently.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
Awesome. All right. So I'm Dan. So I've been, I'm a, as Sarah said, I've been working with Tableau for a while now. I'm very enthusiastic about it. It's a great tool, and I'm really honored to speak about it. So I want to give just a brief roadmap of the things I'll be talking about today. So just kind of an overview about Tableau, some of the general features and things. And then we'll jump into a demo where I'll build some things in Tableau. I think it's probably a little bit easier to show some of how you can work with data and things with Tableau rather than, you know, just kind of talking about it dryly. And then after the demo, I'll go over some of the features of Tableau a little more in depth. And then we'll do a showcase of different Tableau dashboards that are out there, both made by people here at the university as well as externally. So what is Tableau? So I started my journey in Tableau back in about 2012. I was building a customer satisfaction survey in the department I worked in. And so we had the survey going. We were able to pull data back, but we were getting like Excel type data as the output of the survey. And my leadership at the time wanted to be able to get like a daily update of the survey results. And there wasn't a really easy way of doing that apart from going into the survey tool, downloading the data by hand, putting it into Excel, having a graph show up. So I built a solution using a programming language called PHP. And I was eventually able to get it to work, but it was a lot of effort. And it took about a month of development to get it to pull the data and generate an email and then embed a graphic in that email. So it wasn't very satisfactory, and it was really brittle too, because as time went on, they added questions, the solution didn't incorporate that, it had to be retuned and everything. So at that time, I realized there were limits with what I was able to do using some programming languages. It was at that time I was introduced to Tableau. And so in this particular graph here, which is pretty simple, which took me about a month to set up an email and have it automated. It took me about a half an hour in Tableau to rebuild. So it was just this overwhelming amount of just being able to render something really quickly and make it available to people. And so that was when I was hooked on Tableau, and then I've been working with it ever since. So for Tableau, right now we're in, as you all know, we're in the middle of this information explosion, as it were. And we're talking, basically, there's just so much data that's being collected, and there's so much useful information that can be gathered from that data, but there's just so much of it that a single people working on that data can't analyze it and get information out of it as quickly as would be useful. And we're talking like something like 5 exabytes a day of data that's being collected. So to put that in perspective, an exabyte is essentially 1 billion gigabytes. And one way to represent a gigabyte, because it's kind of obscure, is that if you print it out on double-sided pieces of paper, if you printed out enough information so that it filled a ream, and you took enough reams of that information and you stacked it in the back of the pickup truck, that would be about a gigabyte. So in a sense, for a single day, you're getting about 5 billion pickup trucks full of printed paper. And it's just this enormous amount of data, and it's very difficult to glean any information from that data without automating tools and being able to pull the information automatically and being able to glean insights from it using visualizations and other tools. So right now it's not always very easy to be able to access data and make it available for developing insights. So you need to be able to get access to data. First you have to get access to that data, and then you have to convert it into a form that is consumable, so that your tool understands it and can recognize and pull pieces from it. And then you have to be able to identify insights. So you want to be able to tell, is there a hotspot that you're going to need to address? Are you going to be short on critical supplies? These sorts of things you want to be able to get to very quickly, and you want to be able to identify those so that you can take action on them. But then after you've identified your insights, you want to be able to distribute it to people. It's more likely that you want a group of people or a large group of people to be able to see the results of that analysis and have them be able to access it in a way that's quick and something that they're used to. But you also will want to limit, typically you'll want to limit data, only certain people to be able to access it. So you want to be able to take data and develop insights from it so that you can make processes faster, to make service quicker and more reliable. And data is doing that in a large way across many different companies and endeavors in the world right now. So Tableau. So Tableau allows you to create visualizations quickly. It allows you to grab data and turn it into a visualization that will allow people to understand a particular point very quickly. You can also use it to create reports as well. So like your typical text-based data, columnars and things, but it's really good at creating different kinds of visualizations and fairly quickly. And I'll demonstrate that here in a little bit. Another feature of Tableau that's really cool is that it allows you to connect to many different data sources. There's a whole bunch of built-in data connection types into Tableau, and then there's also ways of pulling in data that is essentially writing a customized type connector, and we can talk about that a little bit. So it's really good connecting databases, can connect to text files, Excel, that sort of thing, and also data on websites. So Tableau also has the ability to distribute data, visualizations, and reports that are developed in Tableau via the Tableau Server. So for the purposes of users who are not developing in Tableau. Tableau Server looks just like any other web server. You publish workbooks that you develop in Tableau onto the Tableau Server, and then people can access it with any standard web browser. There's also a mobile client that you can use as well if you want to be able to access it on, say, your phone or a tablet. The Tableau Server also allows you to control who has access to it. So if it's something that you only want one particular person to see, you give them access to it. If you want it to be a particular group or department, you can control who has access to it and what level of access they have, whether they can just view it or if they can interact with it or develop, modify and develop that workbook as well. So there's really a lot of control, and it streamlines the pipeline from creating, having raw data and being able to present it to users who may not be as data savvy. It's something that's simple, and if they're used to using a web browser, they can get to it and interact with the data very quickly. So the components, the primary components of Tableau are Tableau Desktop. It's the developer tool that you would use typically to start and build a visualization, a workbook, and Tableau Server, which is the hosting environment for disseminating that information. So with that, I'd like to go into a demo. Some of the features, I think it would be easier to kind of show some of the features of Tableau if we're actually developing it. So let's see. Let's get out of full screen mode, maybe. All right, so looking at the National Survey of Children's Health. So the census is very kindly has this data available for us. So I'm gonna start, I wanna look, I don't really know that much about this data, so I wanna kind of explore it. So I'm gonna take the SAS data file and download it to my computer. And I see that these, it comes with these data files. So that's not the right one, there we go. So I'm gonna connect to this data source. I know that that file is a statistical file. So if I go to my downloads, I see that I'm able to select it and bring it into Tableau. So this is taking me into the data source view right now. So it's showing me essentially the raw data. So I'm gonna, so this looks fine. So I'm gonna bring this, and this, so in this mode, you're defining the data source, the data model of Tableau. And once you have that established, you go into a visualization design mode, which is where I am right now. So right now I'm gonna start by, there's a whole bunch of numbers here. Each of these is a variable that's in that data set. But first this variable is what I'm using to count how many entries there are in the data set. So I'm just gonna call this, I'm gonna create what they call a custom calculation. And I'm gonna just call this number of children because I think that'll be easier for me to keep track of. So one of the things the first thing I'm gonna do is I just wanna look and see how many children are in this data set. So this data set is the survey from 2018. And so there's 30,000. Well, that's interesting. But one thing that I might want to do is I might want to look at states. So I want to see how this is broken down in states, but there doesn't appear to be a state variable in this workbook. And so, or in this data set. But I noticed that there's a FIPS code, and I know that the FIPS code is it represents a state. So what I can do, so if I search, so I'm just searching on the internet, and I'm still kind of locked. There we go. So if I look for FIPS states codes, there is a USDA website that appears to have it. So if I go back and modify this data source, what I can do is I can drag these in to my data source. Okay, and then I have to be able to link the list of the FIPS codes to the entries. So I will do this. So I'll link these together. It's giving me an error because Tableau thinks that this is a number, like a number that you might add or subtract when it's not. So, but I'm going to say that okay for now. And then if I change this to a string, now it's recognizing that relationship. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off that. So let's see. So I want to call this. All right. So now I have that. So now I'm back into the design mode. So if I want to look at the, so I know the name is the state. And I know what they're calling the postal code is really the state abbreviation. So I'm going to just rename that right now. All right. So what I can do is if I want to look at the number of entries per state, now I can see all that. But this, this doesn't look very interesting. I mean, I can do that. So now we can see them in order. But I think this would look a little more interesting if we started over. So let's just do that. And I'm going to tell Tableau that this is actually a state. And then, so it brings in, it automatically maps that to individual states. Now there's a lot of stuff here. So I'm going to I want to just focus on the lower 48. So I'm going to exclude those and those. And exclude is right there. All right. So now we have, but I think the dot, I don't like the dots. So I'm going to go ahead and use what the fancy word is chloropleth map, but this might be just known as a filled in map. Okay, so now I have a map and I would like to see the number of children per, get rid of those controls there. And let me put the label. So now I can see in a map form the number of children that were part of the survey per state. So that's a good start, but perhaps maybe there's something I can do. I know that the one thing that might be interesting, I know that one of these codes is for food situation, but the codes are numeric, and people are not as good at memorizing and mapping numeric codes. So what I want to do is I want to modify, I want to map this code so that it's human readable. So in this case, I've already pre-looked at the documentation for this particular code, and so I've mapped this into the 4 codes. So essentially what I'm saying is if it's code 1, show this piece of text, 2, 3, 4, etc. So now I have this. So what might be interesting is if I bring this information in a way that will allow me to see what the percentage of the food situation is. So let me switch that over. So okay, so some of the entries appear to be empty. So I'm going to, no, that's not what I wanted. I want to get rid of the ones that were empty. All right, and then number of children. And maybe I'll just focus on, so let me apply this. And I'll show the filter. So I'm just doing a little tidying up here because I only want to show the states that have been selected. So I'm pre-filtering some of the states. All right, so it has these nice numbers here, but maybe I'll just want to focus on like the states around Michigan. So I will bring in Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and say Wisconsin. So, but these colors don't look great because I would, for me, I would assume I want to pay attention to the ones that were more dire. So first, let me sort. And I want to sort it in a manual mode. So I would say that if you could always afford nutritious meals, it's probably a lower priority than if you often could not afford meals at all. So reorder that. And then I'm going to prioritize the color. So I would say that's less alerting, more alerting, very alerting. So you can see that these segments look kind of small. But instead of full numbers, perhaps percentage would be better. So percentage of total and compute using. All right, and so from here, so we'll call this food. And I'll just clean it up a little bit, like that. So now we have a visualization that's both a map and a pie chart showing the percentage of the children surveyed that and their food situation results. So that might be one visualization that you could build from this data set. So, but another thing is I know that looking at some of these numbers, so if I bring in state, and I just show the number of children, and that I know that some states have a lot larger populations than others. So I'm curious if what proportion of the children, what the proportion of the children that were surveyed represent as opposed to the total population of the state. Well, this data set doesn't have that. So I wonder if I can bring that in. So I'm going to go back to my handy web browser. And I will say state population. And I'm pulling up the state populations from the US Census. And there's a data set here, population of the estimated population. So let's download that. So that's a CSV file. So a CSV file, if you're not familiar, similar to an Excel file, but it's just a text-based file. So I'm going to bring that, and if I line up my screens just right, drag that in. All right, so I'll bring that over to try to connect it. Now, I didn't really look at this, but I'm assuming there's a state. Okay, so Tableau recognized that this data set, the data set of all the state populations, has state in the name column, and it's matched up with the FIPS code state that I'd already brought in. So that's good. Now, I don't need all of this data, so maybe I will. Because it'll be easier to work with if I don't have a whole bunch of things. And I know that the estimate is the survey data is from 2018, so I'll keep the population estimate for 2018. And I will just hide everything else. And we can always bring that back later. This is not deleting the data at all. It is just making it not visible as I'm working on the development. So All right, so now I have the population estimates for each of the states. So I can look at the proportion of results. So what I can do is population estimates. So what might be interesting is to just bring that over and just see what it looks like. So in this case, we can see that the estimate for Michigan is 9.9 million, and the others, I want to see what the population, what the proportion of the children of the total population is. So what I can do is create another calculation. In this case, yeah, we can do it. We'll call this just for the lack of another name. And this is going to be a fraction, so I'll change this over to just percentages right now. So if I bring this in and I look at it, then it shows that in this case, the percentage of the population that's being surveyed is smaller. But one thing I might want to, the map, I already have a map already, so maybe I'll look at this a little differently. So let me get rid of these. And maybe bring in the state here and look at it as a bar chart. So all right. So we can see the proportion, each state, and again, this is exploratory. And I just want to draw more attention to be able to differentiate the ones that are larger to the ones that aren't. So this gives me the ability to see which states might be slightly more overrepresented than others. Maybe that's something that could be useful. So now I have two charts, and I'd kind of like to see them together. So what I can do is create a dashboard tab within Tableau, and I'll go ahead and give this a name, NS Overview 2018. And I've do a little kind of cleanup. So let me look at the food situation. I'll bring that in. So it brings it in, and then I'll bring in the proportion of children. So I'm going to hide this because, all right. So I can select additional states. And that is not applying. All right. So from there, so maybe another thing, I know that there's, looking at this data set as well, there's elements for asthma, being able to tell if children have asthma. And I know I have family members who have asthma, and so this might be something that might be interesting. So I'm gonna, but again, it's another one of these codes. So I'll need to create it. I want to convert it into words. So I'll do that now. So now I have a column that I can use. So I'm going to skip the ones. Well, let me just see how many there are first. So there's only 18 of the entries that didn't have an answer for asthma. So I'm going to just go ahead and exclude those. So that's interesting. But what might be more interesting is if I could maybe break it out by age, say. So let me bring that in as well. And that looks kind of scary. So we have, and maybe because age is time is usually better on the the bottom axis. So I had these two separate graphs, but it might be better if I can look at them at the same time. So maybe if I bring that over here, so it gives me the number of each age group in the states that I've selected that have had asthma, either have or have had. And then I think I want the asthma on top. So let me change this up a little bit. All right, so now we have, we'll call this one asthma by age. So let me hide that. So this gives me a view. So looking at the distribution, it looks like the number of kids with asthma gets larger as they get older. You know, maybe that's something that is common. I don't know, but that seems interesting to me. So I'll just bring this in. Now I'll bring this into this workbook, this dashboard. So now we have something that looks a lot more like a dashboard. And maybe I'll do one more. So my nephew is having a baby here in the next few weeks. So, you know, I'm a little curious about how the birth weight, what's the distribution of birth weight. So let's see. That's not it. So the data set has a birth weight in ounces. So let me bring that in. And then I want to know number of children. Again. That looks a little. So there's quite a range here. You know, maybe I don't need to see each one individually. So maybe what I can do is I can group these weights together and maybe do them by like groups of like 5 ounces. So I'm going to create something called a bin. So it just groups those weights together into groups of 5 ounces. So let me get rid of that. Get rid of that. And again, for some reason, there's some that were empty. I'm just going to go ahead and exclude those. And I want to be able to see, I can sort of tell roughly how tall these are, but maybe to be exact, I can include a label. And then so that gives me a histogram of the birth weights that are in this data set. So I can bring that in as well. That is something that looks like a dashboard. Let's move some things around here. Let's bring this over. All right. So now I have this dashboard. Now I want to show, you know, all the people that this dashboard that I've created. Well, maybe not all the people, some people, at least one person. So what I might do is I might publish this to the Tableau server. So let me first clean these up by hiding. All right, so there's just going to be one tab that people will see on the Tableau server. So what I can do now is if I publish it to the Tableau server, I'm going to use the Michigan Medicine Tableau server. That's the one that the only Michigan Medicine staff can access. It's protected by passwords, and I will say, let's create, we'll talk about data extracts really quick, but essentially it's just Tableau taking a copy of that data and storing it somewhere, storing it separately. And so now if I publish this workbook to the Tableau server, and we'll call this in. And I'll just put under user content for now. And I'll say, all right. Okay, so I'll publish that up. So now this workbook that I've just created here in the last 20 minutes or so is now available on the Tableau server. And I will, and the link to it is in the chat. So it is now available, that you can access it on the web, and just that amount of time, that's how quick it was to be able to build something like this. Now, I had worked with this data before, so that made it a little bit quicker, but the idea is a lot of BI tools or a lot of analytics tools can make that turnaround slower. So this is a way of getting the data out really quickly. And you saw that it connected multiple different data sets together, the FIPS data, the population data, as well as the original data as well. So, so that's one example, one demo that I had. The other demo, let me go back to my sheet here. Want to do a quick demo of data on the flu immunizations in pediatrics. I'm not going to build a data model for this one because here's what it sort of looks like. It's a little bit complicated. That would take longer than the time that we have left. So I've already pre-started, like in cooking shows, I've pre-started the data set here. So what I've done is I've set up some calculations for flu season, the flu season, so that the data is set up so that it starts the first month of flu season is in August. So I may just want to take a look at that. And I really only care about the last 3 flu seasons. So I'm going to go ahead and exclude that other one out. And I want to look at the number of immunizations. So that's good, but I'm interested in how we're doing month to month. So I have this immune date field, so I'm going to bring that in. And then I will say, I want to look at the month. And then I just want it to be, I want it to be the short version. So that looks interesting, but I can't really, it's difficult to tell from the numbers, what is bigger, what is smaller. It's a lot easier if it's something that's visual. So let's just start by giving it a name. So maybe we should look at it like a line. That doesn't look as interesting. So now we can see different lines, but I can't really tell, is this one taller than, well, that one is taller, but is this, how do these all compare? So what I can do is bring that over and have the individual line graphs lay over each other. So that looks pretty good. And we'll go ahead and, since I have it in the title, I don't think I need, I will just remove that label. All right. So I like this, but one of the things I like is that for each of these points, I would like it to be bigger. So I can change that by making a small dot, but I really want it to be a lot bigger. And also the one aspect of this is that, well, this data, I mean, it's October 1st now, but when this data was collected, it was still September. And I want to highlight that this endpoint isn't the final point. I want it to look slightly different so that people know that that point will be changing. So what I can do is I can overlay 2 different kinds of charts on top of each other. So let me make that a dual axis and then that. So for the first one, I'll keep that as a line. For the second one, I will make it a circle. And I'll bring that down a little bit. So it gives a nice landing point where you can hover over and get additional information about that point. The exact number, what year it is, if these colors were similar. So now I want to address this last point. So I want to be able to say, if this is in the current month, which it won't be now, then change that color. Yes. Unfortunately, when I was planning this out, this was not in the current month, but now it is. So we'll just go with it. So in this case, there'll be an entry for October if I refresh this data set, and then I'd be able to change this color so that it would be like a white or whitish yellow. But so unfortunately, because it's October 1st, we're not in the current month anymore, so I can't really show that. But I can continue to go on. So then we have this. So that's a nice graph. So maybe I want to be able to look at the different years separately. So what I might do is start with this and get rid of this, which is the line. Okay, so then let me bring this out. Let's say I want to have it be some bar charts, and let's bring this to color. Let me make them a little bit wider because they're kind of thin. All right, so I like how that looks. Probably let's have the exact number as well. Okay, so I think these two charts together look pretty good. Let's get rid of this one. So we'll call this a bar chart. Not a bar end chart, but a bar chart. And maybe we want to add some other features to this. Maybe being able to look at a particular department or ACU. So let's add some filters. And again, I set these up. The data model was set up earlier to include these different things. And then let's go ahead and I'm going to set these filters so each individual tab, the filters can be applied independently. So right now I'm locking it so that all of the filter applies to everything. Because again, now we have two charts, they're separate. It might be cool to see them all together. So I'll just clean these up a little bit. Multiple down, multiple drop down. So now you have just kind of a basic chart just showing the number of flu vaccinations for the last 3 flu seasons, and be able to select particular groups or ACUs. We probably don't want no value. And so now we have something that we could publish to the Tableau server. I'm going to go ahead and just save this real quick. So so these are 2 examples of things that can happen. The interesting thing about the flu vaccine one is that it's based on the Clarity data. So for those who may not be familiar with that, Clarity is essentially a copy of my chart that gets copied over every night. So it's set up so that it's easier to access with database type tools, including Tableau. So the nice thing about this is that if we were to publish it to the Tableau server, we could set it up so that it's either running against the live data, which might be slow, or we could set it up so that it would take a daily copy of it, and so that it would run faster and it'd be something that people could look at. And then once it was on the Tableau server, then that data could refresh every day, and you could get a fresh copy of it. And you could set it up so that you could have it emailed to you, or you could access it with certainly your computer, also a mobile device such as your phone or a tablet. So all these are possible using Tableau. So this concludes the demo portion. So I hope that you see that with Tableau, we're able to connect to a number of different data sources, including static data, such as the files from the census, from the US Census, as well as connect to database sources, and showing that you can publish this, you can do rapid development and publish up to the Tableau server. None of these demos were anything that that would be like finished quality, but just as a demonstration of what you can quickly pull together. So let me switch back to full screen. All right, so just want I know we're kind of running a little low on time, that ran a little bit longer. So I'll just kind of go through these really quickly, and then we can follow up in the second portion in more detail. So for Tableau, again, the two main components of the tool itself are Tableau Desktop and the Tableau Server. The Tableau community is a group as well that is really supportive, and you can ask questions, and they're very helpful. So I also wanted to bring that up as a resource. So the general overview for developing in Tableau is that you have data sources. It may be on a database somewhere. It may be a text file that's sitting on your computer. You can take that, you can combine it together using common fields, and then develop something, a workbook in Tableau, create a visualization, and then when you're ready, publish it to the Tableau server so other people can access it, and then you can disseminate information and then make revisions, that sort of thing. So Tableau Server makes it easy for people, non-developers, to be able to access your Tableau workbooks and be able to draw on information and insights from that data. So quickly about Tableau Desktop, this is a list of the built-in connectors for Tableau, the different data sources it can connect to. Some of these some of these are databases, some of these are solutions. There's also, I want to draw your attention to the ones in this bottom corner here. The Web Data Connector is a piece of a framework software that you can use to connect to data, and you essentially can develop your own custom connection to pull data from strange sources. So these highlighted ones are the ones that I typically will work with. Typically databases though, the SQL Server and Oracle are typically where we're going, where we're pulling data from. But also, if you have a spreadsheet on Box or Dropbox, Microsoft Excel, you can pull data from that as well and make that into a viz, and then be able to refresh it as well. Really quick, these are the stock chart types. You have your usual suspects of a crosstab style, bar charts, line charts, scatter plots, pie charts, maps, choropleth maps, area charts, and box and whiskers, and a whole array of things that you can just do automatically. But so this gets you pretty far, but there's also things you can build on top of that. For example, this is from Financial Times, has developed what they call the visual vocabulary, and Andy, there is a Tableau developer, his name is Andy Kriebel. He went and developed all of the charts from the Financial Times in Tableau. I just want to show really quick some of the examples that he has developed. So scatter plot. So with the Tableau, you can do some simple regression type things. They're not super powerful. They're not going to be something that you would be able to it wouldn't be equivalent to what you could do in something like R or SAS, but it's a starting point. But you can call R and Python from within Tableau to run statistical analysis if you want. That's something that is an option. Let's see. So these are examples of some of the things you can build in Tableau that aren't part of the default data set. Just get back here. So within Tableau, you saw during the demo, it was pretty quick, that I was creating some calculations to map some data from the numeric values into human readable form. You can do also, I also did a summary calculation to do a percentage of total for the pie chart part on the map. There's a whole bunch of different built-in functions for generating and reworking data within Tableau. I only showed you just a tiny portion. You can also run external calculations in R or Python for some of the heavy lifting statistical analysis if you need to work at that level. And so Tableau Server is essentially a web server that lives out on the internet. For us, we're typically working with the medical school Tableau Server, so it's locked down to medical staff or Michigan medicine staff only by default, so that they're the only ones who can log on. However, you can limit access to every individual workbook down to a person if you want to, or to establish groups like the Department of Pediatrics, for example. So there's lots of it allows people that just have a plain old web browser on the computer to be able to access it, assuming they have the right credentials to log on. So that allows that information to get out faster, and you don't have to email reports, and it can update and refresh so that they're always getting a fresh copy of what that analysis is. So then there's also the idea of subscriptions, where you can have the Tableau Server email you if like on a daily, weekly, monthly basis if you'd like, or you can have it email you if there's a trigger condition that a certain variable goes over a certain threshold, then you can have it email you only then. And that has been really useful for some of the things that we've done. You can also establish a published data source on the Tableau Server, and it allows, when you have a published data source, it's just the data piece that's been developed. And then from there, on the Tableau Server, you can use the Tableau Server to do some Tableau development. It's a little bit lighter. There's also the functionality for ask data. So for data sets, there's like a Google searching ability that you can do on a published data source that allows you to generate some graphics and vizzes there and create a workbook that you can then maybe make more detailed. So for the distribution, and I mentioned this before, primarily for Tableau, that we're using the Michigan Medicine Tableau Server. Central Campus has one as well, but it's not able to store HIPAA data. So for the Michigan Medicine Tableau Server, it requires your level 2 password. It has the ability to control access to individual workbooks, to individual data sources, to hierarchies and folders that are within that server. So that also has, and again, this is going into more detail. You can have the data source refresh daily, weekly, after clarity, and then you can have it send emails of snapshots of the particular data. So lastly, in this area, I want to talk about Tableau Community. So Tableau Community, it's just a really enthusiastic group of people who are very helpful and very enthusiastic about data viz and Tableau. So the first one is what is called Pterodactyl. The Pterodactyl group is a group of data analysts across Michigan Medicine meeting. They meet about once every 2 weeks, and they're often talking about different Tableau things, and it's a forum that people can go and talk about maybe some issues they're having and how to resolve it data-wise. Within the university community, there's the Tableau Symposium, which is it's coming up. It's coming up at the end of October. I have the dates later in the slide deck. And in a larger sense, there's a regional Tableau user group, Detroit Tableau user group, which meets about once every couple months. And again, all of these people are very supportive. They're very interested in data viz and being able to pull data together. In the more external sense, there's Tableau Public, which is a public forum. It's a great place to go and browse for interesting vizzes. They have a great viz of the day that is really remarkable. There's the Tableau community forums. It's a worldwide forum for asking for questions about Tableau and getting help. And then there's also another tool that is the Tableau Blueprint. It's essentially a tool set for allowing people or organizations to become more data driven, data oriented. And so there's lots of great tips and things in that for making an organization more data organized. So for the showcase, which I'm not going to be able to get through in the 4 minutes that are left, so I'll just go through it real quick. You probably have seen this, the Tableau, the COVID dashboard, and let me get a full screen mode. And I can have the links for these available if this is something that you're interested in and you haven't seen. So there's some ability to sort and view. So this one is U of M one. The multi-dimensional index of deep disadvantage from the Poverty Center is also one I wanted to show. And this one was done by Tom Cook. Tom Cook is a longtime Tableau developer, and he did this in the Tableau Symposium, I think 2 years ago. So he developed on stage in front of a group of like 40, 50 people, this dashboard talking about ticks on a trail in Michigan. And he also did it was a great impromptu sort of development. It was really cool. So, and so after that whirlwind tour of Tableau, so just want to talk about Tableau. What is it? So Tableau, it's a tool, but it's also a philosophy that.
Yes. Just before we finish off, there are a couple of questions in chat. Will you get
okay. Okay, so I'll skip over this so we can go. So I'd like to end with this particular one, and if we can go to questions, I will dig up chat. So from Jeremy, which Tableau software would I recommend? I would recommend Tableau Desktop is going to give you the most mileage. It's certainly a more full-featured. There's some things you can do with Tableau on Tableau Server, which is free and available right now, but we'd have to make data sources available so that you could work with those. So Tableau Desktop, I think, is where you want to be. So when you have Tableau Desktop, then you can publish to the Tableau Server and make your own visits and that sort of thing. So
thanks. It looks like on the U of M supports Tableau Desktop 10 and then Desktop 2019. I don't know enough to know which is the right one.
The current version that Tableau that's being supported across campus is the 2020.2. So I would recommend that you would use that because it has some of the newer features regarding the data models and some things like parameter actions and some other features. So you could certainly develop with a previous version. I think you wouldn't be able to develop with anything under 2019 and be able to publish to the Tableau Server.
Thank you.
What is the cost for getting and using Tableau Desktop? I don't know the current numbers offhand right now. There is I know for educators, you can get it for a year for free. But I can find that number and get that out. I want to say it's something. I'm not sure. Don't want to say commit.
It costs, this is Joyce, it costs us about $1,400 per license, but that's if you're going to be an Uber user. So, but you can download a free version like every 2 weeks if you want to just try it out.
Okay.
And there's one more question from Melissa. She's wondering which databases Tableau can connect with, and would you be able to pull data from flow sheets into Tableau?
So flow sheets, the MChart or MyChart flow sheets, is that the flow sheets? Yeah, we're able to do that. It's that information gets transferred into Clarity, and so we can access the Clarity database from within Tableau, and we do that right now. So yeah, definitely that. So we can for the broader question of what databases you can access, it's really every major database that's out there right now. So we work a lot with Oracle, SQL Server. I've used MariaDB, MySQL, Postgres is another database that's you often see. We're able to connect to those without, assuming you have the proper credentials, without incidents. So it works really well.
So just a quick question. Thanks. This was really terrific about the cost. So that $1,400, is that an individual annual fee for using Tableau?
It's a one-time, and then it's like a $300 renewal fee that I think HITS will pay for.
Okay.
But that's what they've historically done. Yeah. So you have to like buy in as a user, and then you get like a recurring charge that technically HITS has covered.
And this is part of a HITS site license?
No, I mean,
HITS or no?
we all just, there's like a representative, but you basically go through the rep for Michigan Medicine, but there's people across campus who use it, right? So it's not necessarily, so there's no like, in the way that we use Box or Dropbox or other things, there's no like universal access. You have to buy in. But I think like starting with just trying it out first at our next workshop would be like the first step.
Sure. Yep, great, thanks.
We have one more question from Ashley. She's wondering if a fellow or student can get a free license for a year. Is that just the free license that you were speaking of previously?
Yeah, so you can have the 2-week, anyone can get the 2-week demo license. For educators, there's a form that you would fill out on the Tableau server, and I can find that link that will give you a license for a year.
Oh, and Ashley just clarified, you can get a free license for a year. You just require a .edu email invalidation. Thanks, Ashley.
So just real quick, there's going to be a follow-up, more of a training session on October 14th. There is also the Tableau conference next week. Is that next week? 6th to 8th. So it's free and it's online. So it's like for 3 days. There's also the U of M Tableau Symposium. There's lots of Tableau folks at U of M that are going to be presenting and demoing. Again, that'll be virtual and online, and it's free. And then Tableau has a suite of training videos, and there's plenty of training stuff out there also on LinkedIn Learning about using Tableau as well. So I wanted to shout out to that. So any other questions?
Dan, thank you so much. I know we're just a couple minutes over time, but this was an excellent, excellent presentation.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
it's
thank
a lot
you.
of fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's really a cool tool. So I'm happy to talk about it. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Great, thanks so much.
And thanks everyone for joining today.